Greenset is proud to have partnered with the Leadership for Conservation in Africa. We have partnered with them on their project called Conservation for Non-Conservationists. With me, I have Chris Zuidema. He does EIAs within the film industry. Over to you, Chris.
Morning, guys. It's lucky to see you guys all again. This time we're out in the field for a change and not a stuffy classroom. So today, Greenset has arranged for you guys to come on a field trip. We're on a site that has been used for a number of really big feature film projects in the past, and you wouldn't say it if you look around. So what we're going to do is we're just going to roughly chat through a couple of things, you know, what you would do when you come to a site like this. On your way here, I believe you guys had a visit to the Cape Town Film Studios down the road, and you had a look at the scale of what can be involved when you have to build these big film sets. So it gives you a really good idea the impact of what a massive operation like that can have. And now if you take that in a controlled space, like on a backlot of a film studio, and you want to just plonk that into like a pristine natural environment, it becomes clear the implications of something of that scale. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with a really successful television series, Black Sails, which is filmed by Stars and Film Africa. And a very key set piece in that series was actually built here. It was a huge sugar mill and like a rum distillery, blacksmiths workshops and everything. I mean, it got everything here. They had a huge water wheels, the whole lot. And you'd never say that standing here today, that there was like a full-on development here. So that's an absolute testament to what you can achieve in terms of sustainability with projects of that size if you manage it correctly and you put the right mitigatory measures in place. So to get from where we are in a situation like this to building a massive thing like, you know, a set like that, and then back to this is quite a long roadmap, and it's got a lot of moving parts that one needs to consider as you go along. It's also a really good indication when you look at this and you see how effective rehabilitation processes can be if you implement them correctly. First you determine the environment, then you look at the activity. What is it we want to do? We want to build a sugar mill. How are we going to build this thing? You know, we're going to build it with cement bricks. We're going to build it with wood. You know, what is the? You got to look at the plans. You got to look at the impact footprint. You got to look at all the dimensions, and then you got to basically put that all in a framework that you use to determine what your mitigations are going to be and what those activities would trigger. So it's a very complex process, and it takes a lot of time, but it can be very effective. Okay, so should we go and have a look around, and we can look at some of these little interesting challenges that film productions can have when they build things in a place like this?
Yeah.
Okay, you with me?
Yay!
We go find a nice little water course here, quite close to where the old Black Sail set was, and this just gives you a really good indication of how easily. I mean, they look so nice, and it looks so nice to have it on camera, but it's a really delicate environment. So it's so many technical challenges in terms of your legal paperwork to work close to water courses, and that's another consideration that gets taken into all the planning, etc., for when you want to build a big set. Any questions?
So the one question that I have, I see the animal feces and then the animal moving around. So when you have like a big set close to here, and then I assume that animals perhaps come and drink water from here. So when you guys are shooting, do you then like lock them somewhere, or they still roam around when you guys still?
So yeah, it's an excellent question. So typically you don't want to interfere with the wildlife in any way possible. So wherever you try and avoid situations where you have animals that can get trapped or get tangled in things or injured in any way. Generally, there's so much commotion and that progressively gets busier and busier and louder and more noisy, as the set is being built and planned, and eventually when you're shooting and you've got a crew of 300 people here, that the animals naturally they actually just keep away. They're not really interested. What you sometimes do find is if you've had sets that have been in a place for a really long time, that you might get you know, the odd snake that goes and crawls in under a sheet or under a set or something like that. And then typically guys just catch them and remove them. But strictly speaking, yeah, I've never come across on a project where we've had issues with the animals. You know, where they're being kept from resources, and they'll find there's so much water and food around. It's not this is the only place where they can drink. Yeah.
The question is about what you know, the first time you mentioned how leaving a set better than it is. And then we talk about how Black Sails was building a big set here, and then they shot for months. So now, for instance, like the grass obviously wasn't getting light, so it would have died or whatever. And then you pack up and go. What happens after? When the movies, like when the production is gone, like we've done filming, we've packed up our gear, we cleaned it up. Obviously, we're not gonna leave it dirty.
Yeah.
But then there is the natural implication of the fact that there were people here for so many months. What is the rehabilitation? What is the process of a rehabilitation?
So it's a good question. So every project, when it will have its own unique impact, and it's, you know, depending on the environment of where it is and what the project was and the impact associated with that, and then you assess at the end of a project like that. You know, we break down the set and everything gets packed up, and then afterwards, once it's all taken away, you know, then we revisit the site, and we actually then, because only then do you have a really clear indication of the scale of the impact and what you may need to fix. Or sometimes you get there and you go, actually, you know, there's a little bit of dead grass, but with 5 drops of water and a little bit of sun, it'll come back on its own. No different to leaving a tarpaulin on your lawn. Other times you get, you know, actually, hang on, you know, we got to, you know, re-landscape the soil. We got to make sure that it's stable for erosion. There's you know, all sorts of. So it's. I wish I could give you that there's a one-answer recipe, but that really comes back to having the experience to look at the site and then determine, okay, so this is where we are. This is what's happened. What steps are we going to put in place then to stabilize and keep that. You know, so it gets back to its natural kind of best natural state.
How long do you then allow another production to come in?
So yeah, I mean that would all depend on what the site looks like. You know, that's a bit more of a complicated question because it also depends on, you know, who the property belongs to, who's managing that property or who owns it, and you would look at the determination, because you could say, okay, if we're going to do something, production A has built a structure here and they've not taken it away and it doesn't look too bad, but production B also wants to come and build a structure on exactly the same place. One can then start looking at, okay, it doesn't help you now fix that right away, and then production B comes in that building and then all the work you've done to fix it is ruined. Does that make sense? So it's rare that happens, that they would have 2 big productions having big impacts on the same place right on top of each other. Typically, you know, best practice is to just kind of sort it out and, you know, get everything nice and stable. And you know, stability is really the big key, because otherwise, when you start getting bad weather, then everything gets destroyed. You know, but I would imagine, you know, you could. If the authorities were to say, okay, well, they'd look into considering it, I think you'd probably find it would be a question of whether 2 production teams would have to come to an agreement between them that they will collectively make sure that when the second production's gone, that the site is then rehabilitated to come back to the state it's meant to be.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
Because what I've learned in productions is that they also, most of the teams are the same team. So one big project happens, and then the next big project happens, but it's the same people. So I bet that also helps with them working together, because half of the time it's half of the people.
Yeah. I mean, it can. You know, the nice thing is that then there's also familiarity with the site and what's there and what's happened. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to who's ultimately responsible. You know, if I dig the first hole, I dug the hole, so I have a responsibility to fix that. But now if you want to say you also want to dig, you want to take another scoop out where my scoop is out, and say, but hang on now, how do I to fix my scoop? Unless you take ownership of the fact that you're going to fix this hole now completely because you're not making my hole bigger. Does that make sense?
So here's where my question come into play. My question is also related to this, like when do you take it upon yourself to be like, we are in this media sector, so we have to take care of the space? Or is it because you feel you're only going to take care of that space because you're going to use that space for a moment and you feel like you're damaging that space, so you have to give back? Or do you take it upon yourself, like when you see something is not right in terms of nature, you're just going to go out there and fix it, even if you're not going to use that space?
Just a very quick kind of history. You know, the South African film industry since the kind of 90s has really exploded. And in the early days, there was no environmental management really at all. And you had big productions that did big things, and you know, not all of them left a very good legacy. And eventually it got to a point where it was a double-edged sword because the locations weren't necessarily looking as fantastic and as pristine as they could, so other productions could use them. And then also, you know, it just got to a point where the authorities said, like, that's it now. Now you need to have environmental management in place on your production because it's only leaving a negative legacy. It's not sustainable. So something needs to happen. Otherwise, the authorities are going to say, well, you can't do it. So over the years, you know, people like myself, you know, we've grown a really positive, good working relationship with the film industry, and to try and to kind of really steer the ship into a far more sustainable route, especially when it comes to the actual physical impacts on the ground that you can see. That you can walk around, you can look at something and say, you know, these oaks have destroyed this place, and go, wow, there is a massive rum distillery here, and look at it now. It's like absolutely beautiful. So yeah, so, you know, and at the end of the day, really, you know, all of us, we all share this earth. So we actually, everybody on a crew, we all have a shared responsibility. So we've come over now to another set over here, which is a really good example of leaving a positive footprint. If you look over here, there was a big show here, a Woman King that Sony and Moonlighting did. They built this huge castle fortress over here in a village, and a massive thing. And I mean, you would never say that looking at it now. So it's again a really good example of how you can achieve these things. You know, the key is at the end of the day, you know, us as environmental officers and environmental management, you start the project and the plan, and you make a roadmap, so to speak, of what we need to achieve and what we need to put in place to make sure, you know, we keep everything on track. And then you have guys on the ground to make sure that gets implemented properly. And at the end of the day, this is a classic example of what you can come out with. So it's really a testament that the model works if you implement it properly. You know, it's really, I mean, you'd never say if you watch that show and you see the absolute magnitude of this thing, that was right here, you know, in the middle of Cape Town. You know, you never ever say that. So again, and that's a hats off to, you know, that kind of that symbiotic relationship that the environmental team has with the locations team and the production team, and when that works, you know, when there's a good respect amongst everyone, and you know, we're all on the same course trying to achieve the same objective, and there's a really good outcome there. Any questions?
I have a question. I just want to zoom in on the EIAs and the type of project that will need just streaming and the type of project that will need EIAs and experts. Like, can you give me examples, a scenario where, like, okay, this type of project requires this from the environment. It's this maybe in size. Because of this and that, it's going to require EIAs. No, this one's a bit smaller in size, doesn't require it will need just streaming.
Yeah, so it's a very technical question, that. It's a good question, but very, very technical. So the short answer is it's very dependent on two things. It's the scale and the impact footprint of the proposed project, and its location, where it's going to be. You know, you will not be able to do something like we did here with Women King Set, for argument's sake, on the west coast in the middle of like pristine Renosterveld. There's just no ways. I mean, you'd have to do a full environmental impact assessment, a full one that'll take, you know, at least 18 months. And the reality of the matter is that film productions in general don't have the time frames to allow to do and when I say, I'm going to be very clear here and very specific, you know, when you refer to a full EIA, you know, that is submissions that typically go to the National Department of Environmental Affairs, Development and Planning, and it's a very particular thing. There's always an assessment done, right? But the technical term of a full EIA is a very, very specific process and a very specific document. So any project, we look at it and we do a basic assessment and look at it and say, okay, cool, this is what we need, this is what we want to do it. Okay, that location's not going to work because you're going to trigger a full EIA. You don't have the time and it's unbelievably expensive. That almost never goes that way with film production. They just don't have the time. They don't have the time to wait 18 months odd. Because the reality is when you do a full EIA, you need to do assessments on that site over all the seasons, so that you know what's there. Sometimes you get bulbs that grow there. In fact, there's a classic example. You get bulbs that grow here only in a very particular time of year. The rest of the year you don't even see them, even though they're there, you know? So you only see them in a particular season. So that's why on a full EIA, you have to cover all the seasons. So you can see all the frogs, all the birds, all the weird little bulbs, whatever else may be there, so that you can then determine, well, this is a one-of-a-kind bulb. You only get it here, nowhere else in the world. No, you can't build this project here. So in a film perspective, does any studio, are they prepared to wait 18 odd months and then you get a letter coming back from the Department of Environment that says, no, you can't build it there. So you see, so it just never really, it doesn't really work out that way. So that's where a really, really good understanding of all the legal and the environmental technical aspects comes into play, because you need to steer those, you know, you need to point that out. The reality is if you go and you're going to build something and you've done it in a place where you strictly would have triggered an EIA, it's a criminal offence. It's not a go sit by the film office and somebody waves their finger at you. It's a criminal offence. You've broken the law. It means people can go to jail. And like big multi-million rand fines. Not like, oh, cool, you know, you pay 100 grand, stand millions. 10 million plus, easy. So it's very, very real, and like it's a criminal thing, so that there can be jail time. So it's serious. It's very serious stuff. Yeah. But the beauty of it is that it also shows that you know the government and the authorities, they take these things and their commitment to the environment very seriously. You know, and so over time, more and more and more, so is the film industry. They're starting to see the value of that. You know, so you don't typically have situations where you have that, really. Next question.
So yeah, I've got a question, but I think mine is around community, and I'm just feeling like you're touching on a lot of like the work that you're doing around the legacy of making sure that the community phenomena is you working, you doing all the reparations, and then you leave the place so that you can work again. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, so if you are in a particular like an area that is outside of this one, where you might be maybe in a township, in a location where like in terms of community and also giving back to the community, do you have like work or like incorporate like the people from the community to come in and like maybe experience film, see it like from different lights, and also help out, also assist any like kind of resources and any labor that they can assist in, and like feel like they're taking a part in something that is a project that you're doing within the community that they are based in, environment. Yeah,
so really, I mean, definitely the majority of film projects, try and incorporate, community elements to help wherever they, you know, and wherever they can. And we've worked in places where you know, they've had to fix access roads and things like that, and there's erosion damage or fix things, you know, and this is after the film production has left, you know, and that's part of the rehabilitation plan. You know, when they're breaking down sets and things like that, and they're in those rehab processes, you know, the production companies will say to the guys, well, you know what, yes, all this material, this wood and stuff, whatever, you know, you guys can have it, you know. So that helps a lot as well, you know, so a lot of expensive stuff. And it's, again, you know, everybody's washing each other's hand. The production companies have the benefit that they don't have to transport these things 100 k's back to a landfill or to whatever, you know, however else they want to deal with all of this, you know. So there's a tangible cost benefit, you know, and at the same time for the local community, they're benefiting because they're getting materials that they normally wouldn't buy because it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
And at the end, the environment benefits because all that stuff going away. So it's quite a cool circle of life, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So yeah, and you know, I say again, you know, this environment, this green ball we're all dancing around on it, we all have a responsibility to it, you know. There's the only one we have. I don't know if you guys have seen anything of us being able to live on Mars, Jupiter, or anywhere else, but so far it's the only one we have, and if we don't look after it, we'll be in trouble.